Scary movies, shows about hunting ghosts and monsters, urban legends about haunted bridges and abandoned mine shafts, and all things that go bump in the night. We like to be scared. That sense of urgency, that rush of excitement. It shocks us, thrills us. But what about the stuff that can't scare us anymore? The stuff that never got a chance to scare anyone? The stuff that hasn't scared anyone in ages, if ever. Well, sit back, cower under a nearby blanket, and enjoy as I recount the tales of 13 pieces of spooky lost media. This Man. This Man was a planned horror film from the early 2010s about a man who people all over the world had reportedly been seeing in their dreams. In 2009, a website entitled thisman.org circulated online. The website stated the following. In January 2006 in New York, the patient of a well-known psychiatrist draws the face of a man that has been repeatedly appearing in her dreams. The website also stated that from January 2006 until today, at least 2,000 people have claimed they have seen this man in their dreams in many cities all over the world: Los Angeles, Berlin, Sao Paulo, Tehran, Beijing, Rome, Barcelona, Stockholm, Paris, New Delhi, Moscow, and many more. Along with the description, a poster of the supposed man was pictured, with the caption, "Ever dream this man?" Website Gizmodo would report in May of 2010 that the site was a publicity stunt for a film that was currently in production by Ghost House Pictures, with writer-director Brian Berterno, known for the 2008 psychological horror film The Strangers, attached to write and direct the film. However, the film was never mentioned again after the Gizmodo article, and is assumed to have been quietly cancelled. Silent Hills. Silent Hills is a cancelled horror game, and was to have been the 9th installment in the ever-popular Silent Hill franchise, being directed by Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. In August 2014, a demo called PT, which is short for Playable Teaser, was released on the PlayStation Store. PT centers on an unarmed protagonist wandering around a continuously looping hallway in a haunted house while radio reports on the killing of a family, while the house itself shows supernatural occurrences like the ghostly apparition of a woman. After going through the demo and solving the final puzzle, a cutscene shows the protagonist walking out into the streets of an abandoned town, revealing himself to be portrayed by Norman Reedus. The credits then reveal that the demo was a teaser for a new game in the Silent Hill franchise to be directed by Hideo Kojima and filmmaker Guillermo del Toro. However, in March 2015, it was revealed that following completion of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, Kojima had plans to leave Konami due to conflicts. Around the same time, Konami announced plans to restructure their company, and thus removed all references to Kojima from all of its games. In April that same year, Guillermo del Toro revealed that the game had indeed been cancelled, and Norman Reedus took to Twitter the next day to confirm the same. On that same day, Konami revealed that PT would be removed from the PlayStation Store on April 29th, and on April 27th, Konami confirmed to gaming news website Kotaku that although Silent Hills would not be continued, they would still move forward with the Silent Hill franchise. Although no material from Silent Hills has ever really surfaced, Kojima, del Toro, and Reedus would all eventually collaborate again on a game called Death Stranding, which was released for the PlayStation 4 on November 8th, 2019, to mostly positive reviews. London After Midnight. London After Midnight is a silent horror film from 1927 starring Lon Chaney, perhaps best known for his role as the Phantom in 1925's The Phantom of the Opera. The film centers on Sir Roger Balfour, the owner of a mansion, being found dead, with Professor Edward Burke sent to investigate the incident. 5 years later, the house is now old and decrepit, with dark mysteries lurking within. The mansion now belongs to an odd old man who is also named Roger Balfour. Professor Burke is once again tasked to attend to the supposed vampires that reside within the residence. However, it turns out that Burke is Belfour in disguise. Variety at the time thought that the other actors weren't interesting enough to carry the film, and that the film would sell solely on Lon Chaney's name alone. The film would go on to perform moderately. Supposedly, only one copy of the film existed, and in 1965 is believed to have been destroyed in a large MGM studio fire. The occurrence and specifics of this fire are still debated to this day, with some stating that it could have been an electrical fire. However, production stills from the film ended up surviving over the years, and in 2002, film preservationist Rick Schmidlin was commissioned by Turner Classic Movies to produce a reconstruction of the film using these same production stills. This reconstruction can still be viewed online today, but the original version of the film is likely lost forever. Hirogata. Hirogata, also known as white humanoids, is a supposed lost Japanese commercial dating back to at least the late 90s. It all started on an anonymous Japanese message board known as 2channel. Users were discussing creepy commercials and ads when suddenly a post appeared that, when translated to English, reads as follows. There is this terribly scary commercial, and I still have it constantly left in my memory. There were two white human figures depicted against a black backdrop. And this noise going gum, gum kept ringing. What's sure is the part that went, every 2 seconds, a man dies on Earth. So after the noise is repeated twice, one of the figures disappears. On the next instant, the human figure returns back to its old place, and now it's the other one that disappears. It was a commercial of only that repeating over and over for an extended time. Multiple people claim to have seen the commercial, though reports often differ between people. The commercial is thought to be from the late 90s, and a time frame ranging from 1996 to 2003 has been narrowed down. To this day, it's not entirely clear what this supposed commercial was advertising, with people believing it could have been advertising soap, a drugstore, jeans, or perhaps the most popular theory, a PSA of some sort, with most believing that it could have potentially been a railroad safety PSA. There's tons to unpack with this mystery, and it's still not confirmed if it even exists. Maybe one day we'll be able to get to the bottom of this one. Cameraheads. A very early creepypasta, which, for those unaware, is essentially a scary story that originated on the internet, Cameraheads was originally posted on anonymous message board 4chan on August 8, 2009 on their paranormal boards. The initial post that introduced the story read as follows. What's a camerahead? I was walking home through a nearby gully and came across a weird stack of rocks and a torn envelope with some writing on it. It appeared to have been written in charcoal or ash. It said, I killed a camerahead. On the next line, it took Trevor. In the last line, get help if I don't come back. And there was a mini DV nearby. This was all that was on it besides static, though I had to watch it a few times before I found this clip. Who took this video? A camerahead sounds really silly if it's a monster with a camera for a head. Along with the post, a YouTube video is attached, simply titled Camerahead. However, the original post, along with any further material that might have gone with the story, completely disappeared. You see, the creepypasta was detailed on the Paranormal Board's wiki, Xenopedia, and once that wiki eventually shut down due to waning interest in various attacks targeted at the site, Cameraheads went with it. And for years, the story was thought to be entirely lost, with people on 4chan eventually starting to take notice and ask about the lost pasta. However, on August 16, 2020, a 4chan user posted a link to the original Camerahead video, still on YouTube in plain sight after all these years,
with users on the site agreeing that this video was in fact part of the creepypasta. And just a few months later, on October 19th, 2020, Lost Media Wiki user Martin005 found an archived link of the recent changes part of Xenopedia via archive site archive.is. Using this, they were able to find a feed of edits to the original Cameraheads page, which contained a full transcript of the original post that started it all. However, any bonus material that might have existed beyond the original post and video is completely lost, and the existence of any more supplementary material to the story is completely unknown.
Chucky. Wanna play? Announced in May of 2011 by developer Tick Games, Chucky, Wanna Play was to be a stealth action game based on the Child's Play franchise, in which players would take control of horror icon Chucky as he stealth killed his way through victim after victim, using various kill moves inspired by the Child's Play franchise. Tick Games promoted the game as a gore-soaked adventure, and had already sank in just over $500,000 to bring the game to life. But they needed more to finish the game, so on October 15th, 2012, they turned to Kickstarter, asking for a further $925,000 to finish the game and get it released on PC, with console versions to follow shortly after. However, just 1 week later, on October 22nd, funding for the project was canceled by Tick Games, with 19 backers and only $585 raised. In a backer-only update, backers were left with this message. It is with great sadness that we announce the cancellation of this Kickstarter campaign. For those who have followed Chucky this last week, you know that pledges have been very slow. We built a fun campaign with lots of great goodies, got the word out to as many people as we could, but sadly not enough people loved the concept of a Chucky video game as much as we did. Our sincerest thanks go out to all of you who pledged to Chucky, and we promise no charges will be made to your credit card for this Kickstarter project. After this update, nothing else about the project has ever surfaced, leaving the build of the game that existed completely MIA, and it's unlikely to ever be released. Sorry, Chucky, but it just seems that nobody wanted to play with you.
Crybaby Lane. On October 28th, 2000, Nickelodeon aired a horror comedy about a boy named Andrew and his brother Carl, who hold a seance at a local graveyard to impress some girls. Unbeknownst to them, they accidentally release the soul of an evil dead Siamese twin. Whatever the twin touches turns evil itself. So of course, Carl gets affected and the whole town gets plunged into turmoil. Andrew then has to journey to Crybaby Lane to literally cut the root out of the dead twin's heart and save their town from the evil that he and Carl unleashed. The film was only aired once, and for over a decade it was considered lost, with some even considering it an urban legend, with no one sure if Nickelodeon even still had the film in its possession. That was until 2011, when Reddit user FireSaladPeach revealed that they had a VHS recording of the film from its original airing, and later released the film on YouTube, where it garnered a fair amount of views. Whether they were prompted in the sudden interest in the film or not, shortly after this, Teen Nick announced that they would re-air the film on October 31st, 2011, describing the film as Nickelodeon's darkest secret, and stating that it was banned from TV. As it turns out, Nickelodeon had the film all along, and had just simply forgotten about it. It occasionally airs every few years around Halloween time. The Spider Pit Scene. As covered previously in my video 5 Deleted Scenes Lost to Time, the Spider Pit scene was a deleted scene cut from the original 1933 version of King Kong. In this scene, as the film crew make their way through the jungle, they walk across a log and fall down into a giant pit below them, where giant spiders await them. Spoiler alert, they don't make it. Rumors over the years have said that the audience at the first test screening were so terrified by the scene, with some people even fainting during the screening, that director Marion Cooper burned the scene that night following the screening. As such, it's very unlikely that the scene will ever resurface, although a very faithful recreation of the scene was made by director Peter Jackson in the mid-2000s.
Lucky 7.
Thought to be the first live broadcasted pirate TV station, the Lucky 7 channel was broadcast in Syracuse, New York, consecutively from April 18th to April 21st, 1978. Hijacking the unused Channel 7, the broadcasters would play shows and movies such as Rocky, The Twilight Zone, and Star Trek. In between the programming, a man in a gas mask would make comments and give commentary. To this day, his identity is unknown. The broadcast has been said to have been strongest in the areas surrounding Syracuse University, given credence to the possibility that the broadcasters were students there, but this is just mere speculation. No recordings or photos of the broadcast have ever surfaced, with only a New York Times article from April 20th, 1978 serving as proof that the broadcast happened at all.
The original Jeff the Killer image.
If you spent any time on the internet during the early 2010s, then you've definitely heard of Jeff the Killer. Originating from a YouTube video as early as 2008, and then later being turned into a creepypasta like Cameraheads, the story centers on 13-year-old Jeffrey Woods, who, after being beaten and lit on fire by some bullies, carves a permanent smile on his face, similar to Joker from The Dark Knight, and then goes on a killing spree. The story itself was your basic creepypasta, not being well written and just existing for the sake of, ooh, spooky. But the reason everyone knew this creepypasta back then, and the reason it's remembered today, is this image. This is Jeff. At least, it's a very heavily photoshopped photo designed to conceptualize what Jeff might look like if he was real. But what about the photo before it was photoshopped? Who is this person that was modified to become one of the icons of creepypasta? Where is the original unedited image? All good questions, and sadly they don't really have answers. Various attempts have been made over the years to find the original image, with some people believing a very similar looking photo of a woman to be the image used. But this has never been confirmed and is just mere speculation. We might never know the truth behind this image. Attack of the Killer Rabbids from Outer Space. Originally planned to be a part of the Raving Rabbids franchise in 2010, Attack of the Killer Rabbids from Outer Space was to be a shooter game in which Earth is attacked by a frightening cousin of the Rabbids, with concept art depicting the creatures as very similar to the Rabbids, but with sharp teeth and with some of them missing their eyeballs. Other pieces of conceptual art for the game showcase various enemy types, such as a generic trooper, a shield trooper, a giant rabbid, some UFOs, and various other alien vehicles. Some of the art depicts a group of soldiers fighting the Rabbids, suggesting that the game might have had some kind of multiplayer element to it. However, Ubisoft Montpellier, the developers behind the game, started to become weary and concerned about the game's more adult themes and violence, fearing it wasn't in the spirit of the franchise people had come to love. In an interview with Polygon, designer John Carl Tupic Braun said the following: "We thought about making them cousins to the Raving Rabbids, but quickly decided to split it off. This is not what Raving Rabbids is all about." And so, come E3 2011, the game was officially changed from Killer Rabbids to Killer Freaks, and the game was announced as a launch title for the then upcoming Wii U. And while the Freaks still shared some physical characteristics with the Rabbids, like their size, they were given more reptile-like features to help sell the point that they weren't Rabbids. Although, once again, problems arose. Although reception to the new footage was well received and seemed to be a surefire hit for Nintendo's newest console, the developers still weren't satisfied with how the project was going. Problems like the game's fast pace and the small stature of the enemies, which caused most players to spend much of their playtime staring at the ground, forced the team to overhaul the game's enemies entirely. With zombies. That's right. The game would eventually release as a launch title for the Wii U as intended, but not as Killer Rabbids or as Killer Freaks. The game would end up becoming Zombie U, a slower-paced first-person shooter that went on to score middle-of-the-road reviews. No playable builds from either the Rabbids or Freaks version of the game exist today, with only concept art, some screenshots, and the E3 2011 Freaks trailer existing. Max Headroom Audio. I'd wager it's safe to say that a fair number of you have heard about the Max Headroom TV hijackings from 1987. In what's probably the most infamous television hijacking of all time, a group of around 3 people interrupted programming on November 22nd of that year on 2 different channels and on 2 separate occasions. The hijacking featured a man dressed as 80s icon Max Headroom, a British artificial intelligence who first appeared in the 1985 TV movie Max Headroom 20 Minutes into the Future. The man would stand in front of a screen like the character himself would, but say pop culture phrases like, "Catch the wave," the catchphrase of New Coke, and also hum the Clutch Cargo theme song. However, for the first broadcast intrusion, it's completely unknown what the man was saying due to there being a distinct loud buzzing noise in the background during the hijacking, with speculation leading people to think that the intruders weren't successful in hijacking the TV station's audio signals. However, due to a jump cut scene in the second broadcast, it's clear that the hijackings were not live and were in fact done using pre-recorded videotapes, meaning that the original tape of the first broadcast might still be in the hands of the intruders, with the audio intact. Unfortunately, the odds of this tape ever seeing the light of day are slim to none, as releasing the tape would give away the identity of the hijackers, who are still unknown to this day. Nights of the Werewolf. Also known by its Spanish title, Las Noches del Hombre Lobo, Nights of the Werewolf is a supposed Spanish/French horror film from 1968. Directed by René Govard and written by a man known as Paul Naschy, the film centered on a professor using one of his students as a means of revenge by controlling him using sound waves every time said student transforms into a werewolf. Very little information on the film or the director are known. Paul Naschy kept saying for years before his death that the script was filmed in Paris and that it was completed. Adding to the bizarre story is the fact that the director, René Govard, was allegedly killed in a car accident a week after the film was sent off to be processed. What happened next differs from person to person, with some reports saying the film was in the car during the accident and was destroyed, while other reports state that the filmmakers never paid the cost for the film negative and that the processing lab kept it and just lost it over the years. But here's where the story gets weirder. Naschy supposedly said that actors Peter Beaumont and Monique Brainville were cast in the film. There's just one problem. These people don't exist. On top of that, René himself has nothing listed on IMDb, and according to reports from the French film industry, nobody named René Govard ever worked with them. So, did the film ever exist? Or was the whole thing just a wise tale thought up by Naschy to boost his career? We might never know the truth behind this one. Hey everyone, Seeker here. I hope you all enjoyed the video. And if you did, please be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.